Subscribe and download over 1 million code snippet including this tutorial from codegive.com, link in the description below. Certainly. Installing Python 3.7 on a Mac with an M1 chip involves a few steps. Here's a step-by-step tutorial with code examples. Homebrew is a package manager for macOS that makes it easy to install and manage software packages. Open Terminal and run the following command to install Homebrew. Follow the on-screen instructions to complete the installation. Since Python 3.7 may not be available natively for the M1 architecture, we need to install Rosetta 2, which allows the execution of Intel-based software on M1. Now that Homebrew and Rosetta 2 are installed, let's use Homebrew to install Python 3.7. This command installs Python 3.7 using Rosetta 2. Creating a virtual environment is a good practice to isolate Python packages for your projects. Replace myenv with your preferred environment name. Activate the virtual environment using the following command. Now, verify that Python 3.7 is installed correctly. This should display something like Python 3.7.x. Ensure you have the latest version of pip. You can install any additional Python packages you need using pip. For example, when you're done working in the virtual environment, deactivate it. That's it. You've successfully installed Python 3.7 on your Mac with an M1 chip. Feel free to use this environment for your Python projects. ChatGPT. Certainly. Installing Python 3.7 on a Mac with an M1 chip involves a few steps. Here's a step-by-step tutorial with code examples. Homebrew is a package manager for macOS that simplifies the installation of various software. Open Terminal and run the following command to install Homebrew. Follow the instructions displayed in the terminal to complete the installation. Rosetta 2 is a compatibility layer that allows you to run software built for Intel-based Macs on Apple Silicon. myenv is a tool to manage multiple Python versions on your system. You can install it using Homebrew. Add the following lines to your shell configuration file, example/.zshrc or /bashrc. Restart your terminal or run source/.zshrc, or source/.bashrc, to apply the changes. Now that myenv is installed, use it to install Python 3.7. This process may take some time as it downloads and compiles Python. Once it's finished, set Python 3.7.9 as the global version. Verify that Python 3.7.9 is the active version. It's a good practice to use virtual environments to manage dependencies for different projects. Create and activate a virtual environment. Now, you have Python 3.7.9 installed on your Mac with an M1 chip, and you're ready to start working on your projects. Remember, the steps and commands provided are accurate as of my last knowledge update in January 2022. Always check for any updates or changes in the tools and versions. ChatGPT. Certainly. As of my last knowledge update in January 2022, Python 3.7 might not be officially supported on Apple M1, as Python versions progress, and new updates may have been released. However, I'll provide you with a general guide on how to install Python on macOS with an example. Please check the Python official website or other reliable sources for the latest information. Homebrew is a package manager for macOS. If you don't have it installed, open Terminal and run the following command to install it. Follow the instructions during the installation process. Now that you have Homebrew installed, you can use it to install Python. Open Terminal and run the following command. This command installs Python 3.7 using Homebrew. The at 3.7 specifies the Python version. After the installation is complete, you can verify the Python version by running. This should print the Python version you just installed. It's a good practice to use virtual environments to manage your Python projects. Create a virtual environment with the following commands. Replace myenv with your preferred virtual environment name. Now you can install Python packages within this virtual environment without affecting your system's Python. Here's a simple Python script to test your installation. Save this code to a file, example test_script.py, and run it using. You should see the message printed on the terminal. Keep in mind that Python 3.7 might not be the latest version available. You can adjust the version number in the installation command based on your requirements. Always check the official Python website for the latest release information and compatibility with Apple M1. ChatGPT. Sure, I'd be happy to help you with that. Installing Python on a Mac with an M1 chip involves a few steps, but it's generally straightforward. Here's a step-by-step tutorial for installing Python 3.7 on a Mac with an M1 chip. Homebrew is a package manager for macOS that makes it easy to install and manage software packages. Open Terminal and run the following command to install Homebrew. Follow the on-screen instructions to complete the installation. Rosetta 2 is Apple's technology that allows Intel-based applications to run on M1 Macs. Some Python packages might require it. To install Rosetta 2, open Terminal and run. Before installing Python, let's make sure you have the necessary dependencies. Run the following commands in Terminal. Now you can install Python 3.7 using Homebrew. Run the following commands. This command installs Python 3.7 using the x86_64 architecture. We use the arch command to specify the architecture explicitly. Creating a virtual environment is a good practice to manage your Python projects and dependencies. Run the following commands to create a virtual environment and activate it. Check that Python 3.7 is installed correctly by running. You should see something like Python 3.7.x. Congratulations! You've successfully installed Python 3.7 on your Mac with an M1 chip. Note, keep in mind that Python 3.7 is an older version, and it's recommended to use a more recent version for new projects. You can adapt the steps above to install a different version by modifying the Homebrew command accordingly. ChatGPT. Installing Python 3.7 on a Mac with an M1 chip involves a few steps, but it can be done smoothly. Follow this tutorial to set up Python 3.7 on your Mac M1. Homebrew is a package manager for macOS that makes it easy to install and manage software packages. If you don't have Homebrew installed, open Terminal and run the following command. Follow the instructions on the screen to complete the installation. Xcode command line tools are necessary for building software on macOS. Install them by running the following command in Terminal. Follow the on-screen instructions to complete the installation. If you encounter any issues with running non-native applications, consider installing Rosetta 2. This can be done by running the following command. Now, let's use myenv to install Python 3.7. First, install myenv using Homebrew. Add myenv to your shell configuration. If you're using bash, add the following to your /bash_profile or /bashrc. Restart your shell or run source /bash_profile or source /bashrc to apply the changes. Now that myenv is installed, you can install Python 3.7 with the following commands. Check if Python 3.7 is successfully installed. You should see output similar to pypenv is a dependency manager for Python projects. You can install it using pip. Now you have Python 3.7 installed on your Mac M1. You can create virtual environments and start coding with your preferred Python version. ChatGPT. Sure, I'd be happy to provide you with a step-by-step tutorial on installing Python 3.7 on a Mac with an M1 chip. Please note that Python 3.7 might not be officially supported on M1, and it's generally recommended to use a more recent version of Python. However, I'll guide you through the process if you specifically need Python 3.7. Install Homebrew. Open Terminal and run the following command to install Homebrew if you haven't already. Install Rosetta 2. Some packages might not be available for M1 natively. To overcome this, install Rosetta 2. Install Xcode command line tools. You'll need Xcode command line tools for compilation. Install them using. Tap into Python 3.7 formulae. Before installing Python 3.7, tap into the relevant formulae. Install Python 3.7. Now, you can install Python 3.7 using Homebrew. This process may take some time. Verify installation. Check if Python 3.7 is installed successfully. You should see the Python version displayed. Create a virtual environment, optional. It's good practice to use virtual environments to isolate your Python projects. Create a virtual environment by running. Activate the virtual environment. Now, you can install and manage Python packages within this virtual environment. Here's a simple Python script to verify your Python installation. Save this script as hello.py and run it using the installed Python 3.7. You should see the output, hello, Python 3.7 on Mac M1. Remember, using a more recent version of Python is recommended for better compatibility and security. If you encounter issues, consider using a newer Python version. ChatGPT. Certainly. Installing Python 3.7 on a Mac with an M1 chip involves a few additional steps compared to the Intel-based Macs. Here's a step-by-step tutorial with code examples. Homebrew is a package manager for macOS that simplifies the installation of various software, including Python. Open Terminal and run the following command to install Homebrew. Rosetta 2 is a translation tool that allows Intel-based applications to run on Apple Silicon, M1, Macs. Some Python packages may require it. To install Rosetta 2, run the following command. Now that Homebrew is installed, you can use it to install Python 3.7. Run the following commands in the terminal. This command uses the x86-64 architecture to install Python 3.7 because, as of my knowledge cutoff in January 2022, there might not be a native M1 version of Python 3.7. Check if Python 3.7 is successfully installed by running the following commands. Creating a virtual environment is a good practice to isolate your Python projects. Run the following commands to create and activate a virtual environment. If you need additional Python packages, you can install them using pip. Replace package_name with the actual name of the package you want to install. Now you have Python 3.7 installed on your M1 Mac using Homebrew. Keep in mind that this information is based on the state of technology as of my last knowledge update in January 2022, and there may be updates or changes since then. Always check for the latest information if you encounter any issues. ChatGPT. Certainly. Installing Python 3.7 on a Mac M1 involves a few steps. The Apple M1 chip uses a different architecture, ARM64, so we need to ensure compatibility. Let's go through the process step by step. Homebrew is a package manager for macOS that makes it easy to install various software, including Python. If you don't have Homebrew installed, you can install it by running the following command in the terminal. myenv is a tool for managing multiple versions of Python on your system. We'll use it to install Python 3.7. Add the following lines to your shell profile file, example.zshrc or .bash_profile, to enable myenv. Restart your terminal or run source/.zshrc, or source/.bash_profile if you're using bash, to apply the changes. Make sure you have the necessary dependencies installed. Now, use myenv to install Python 3.7.9. This version is known to be compatible with macOS Big Sur on M1. Make Python 3.7.9 the default version for your user. Check if Python 3.7.9 is now the active version. This should display something like Python 3.7.9. Ensure you have the latest version of pip. You've successfully installed Python 3.7.9 on your Mac M1 using myenv. You can now start using Python 3.7.9 for your projects. Remember that software and tools are frequently updated, so it's a good idea to check for the latest versions and updates to ensure compatibility. ChatGPT